Alrighty, I'm live. Neat. Let's try and get these other two. So we finished up the frog ending where he just kind of faded into nothing. It was pretty gruesome. Yeah. So let's do this one. Neither here nor there, but long ago. I actually didn't start the stream on my phone, so I could actually see what's happening. Where is that phone? Oh yes, I am currently live. Neat. Okay, now I'm hanging out in the corner of my own screen. That's a little bit better. Okay. Neither here nor there, but long ago. Back in the old days when the gods were real, your mother lived in a vast and mysterious rainforest, full of strange figures. To the north lived a cunning thief. To the west, a cackling witch. To the east, there was nothing and no one. Oh my god, the frog's gone now! Oh, wow, that's wild. To the south, a wise mushroom. Yet she had little time to spend wandering wondering about these old folks, for she had 10 children and had to work night and day just to feed them. When you were born as the 11th, she had no idea what to do. She took you up in her arms and ran into the darkness of the forest, promising that she would ask the first man she met to be your godfather. In the darkness of the forest, she may or may not have met a man in white. Is anything certain these days? His right hand held a dove. His other hand held a gun. His other hand held a crisp dollar bill. His other hand held a pillar of fire. His suit was perfect. His face was too bright to look upon. He already knew what was on her mind. Poor woman, let me be the godfather. I shall hold this child and make sure she's happy on this earth for the rest of her days. I will ask only one thing. She must work hard and earn every dollar and obey me above all else. We said last time, so I guess I'll say no this time. I am your dear lord. I will ask only one thing. Oh. Oh, I see. He just says that I am the lord. Then I don't want you as the godfather. You give to the rich and take from the poor. You are no lord of mine. She said this foolish thing with no understanding of how wisely the Lord distributes wealth and poverty. Then she turned away from him and ran into the forest. In the deeper darkness of the forest, she may not have met a man in red. Or she may or may not have met a man in all red. How can we be sure of anything but the greatness of God? This is a very religious game. I didn't think it was gonna be. All the jewels of the earth fell from his right hand, and all the pleasures of the world fell from his left. And his other hand held all the wonders of the universe. And his other hand held a fat cigar. And his other hand held a long knife, black as coal dust. And his other hand held the most intoxicating spices, such that the great King of Kings would cry to taste them. And his other hand held a single dead rose. And his other hand was in his pocket and out of view. Got a lot of hands. Poor woman, let me be the godfather. I'll make sure the child needs nothing and wants everything. She shall live in wealth and comfort for all her days and devour only the richest meats for every meal. I have only one condition. She must promise to obey no master and scorn the rule of law and do as she wilt every day of her life. Who are you? Why, I am the devil himself. Suppose if I don't trust the Lord, I should trust in the devil. Very well. Beggars can't be choosers, I suppose. Excellent! He let out a great shrieking cackle and placed his mark upon you. You will name her Nix Litton. I will come for the child the moment she turns 18. Keep her safe for me until then. Just make sure you're there for the christening on Sunday. But he was already gone. In your notes, you write down that you are the devil's godchild. And so you grew up as a wild and willful child, and you drove your mother. There's also a lot of typos in this game. And you drove your mother to distraction with your wickedness. You obeyed no laws and no masters, and you roamed heedlessly across the hills and dales, cackling wildly and throwing mud in your wake, and all the neighbors said, "That one has the devil's mark upon her," and shut their doors. This so grieved your mother that she fell down dead. In spite of this, you still did not mend your wicked ways. Your ill deeds were rewarded, for you soon found that you could scarcely trip over a stone without unearthing precious diamonds and gems, and you became rich beyond the dreams of avarice. You lived with your 10 siblings in a house on stilts, on the banks of a muddy river, in a vast rainforest. You woke every morning to the chorus of birds, and fell asleep every evening to the roaring of crickets. Am I happy in this life? Well, it was a rich house, and you had everything you could ever want. The house was always full of chatter from your 10 siblings, and you were always cramped for space, with all of them around. But still, sometimes you would get a hollow feeling inside you, and walk out of the house to stare into the dark woods beyond. No matter how many people were around you, you felt like something was missing. Every year, on the day before your birthday, the village would throw a twilight festival for no reason anyone could name. On these nights, you always felt strange. You would avoid the festival and stare deep into the woods all through the night. You woke every morning to the chorus of birds and fell asleep every evening to the roaring of crickets. I want to know about my neighbors and the lands around my house. Your world was overrun, it festered, it swarmed. Every tree and lantern and sweet corn was teeming with gutterlings, batfolk, scab-eater rounds, lurks, swirl, Nathorn hobs, lanternlings, curselings, grimmel dobbies, foldovers, whisper kings, hook-type takers, the cannibal wind howling across the plains, ghost water pooling, luminescent in the underground caverns. Every house was haunted, and every knife was drawn against the dark. Yet still, there were strange, hollow places where nothing lived, no sound escaped. The stillness of that laguna. If anything walked there, it walked alone. Do not ask lightly of the northern forest, my child. That was a cursed place where wicked sprites and gleeful ghosts held sway. All who lived there slept uneasy in their beds as they heard the goblin train rattle past their window each night. The worst of them all was the master thief, a dexterous and sinister figure who was said to have all manner of powers. It was said on moonless nights their long arms would stretch through your window and up your stairs and into your bedroom and steal your dreams right out from under your pillow. In a single motion, their long legs would carry them away to a secret hideout where they would place your forgotten thoughts in a sack of mysterious things, never to be seen again. No jail could hold them, and no lock could bar them entry, or so it was said. But the lands to the east. To the east there was nothing and no one. Ha! Damn, Frog just got erased from history. In fact, the South River and the forest around it was watched over by a wise mushroom ambassador who had owned these lands since before anyone could remember. On cold, clear nights, you could see her walking through the depths of the forest with her white veil and delicate waves of silver spores drifting behind her. She allowed your family to live on the river and use her lands under one condition. Ask not what concerns you not, lest you hear what pleases you not. Your family accepted her wishes, and so you let each other be. She was often away brokering trade agreements and peace treaties and delicate alliances between the many trees and plants and old warring ferns of the forest. Or so it was said. But the lands to the west? None dared venture to the western mountains, for all the lands around it were said to be home to a terrible witch. Her hut lay deep under a secret lake, and she would emerge on moonless nights when the waters of that lake turned still and silver green. The witches held their Sabbath on the mountain to the east, and when the sky was clear, you could see the peak blaze with fire, and the destroyer himself would emerge to dance in the firelight. Or so it was said. I'll turn that down. Sorry about that. Partner texting. I'll text you back in a little bit, Jade, I promise. Alas, all too soon the eve of your 18th birthday arrived. You set about in wild terror, for you knew that your godfather would come to take you away as soon as the clock struck midnight, and you had no wish to leave just yet. The closer the hour grew, the more frantic you became. You knew you would soon pay dearly for all your years of wicked indolence. I know, I'll go to the village festival this eve. There will be travelers from all over this haunted land. Surely one of them will know how to save me from my terrible fate. You gathered up your coin purse, along with some bread and meat for the journey, and resolved to travel until you found a way to escape the devil. And so you took up your belongings and strode down the road to the festival. The twilight set in, the crickets and cicadas all around began their chattering and squabbling, and the evening birds began to laugh and trill as the wet, cool mist of the rainforest settled around you. The crooked old water dragons looked sideways at you and plotted their long, slow schemes. A small turtle saw you coming and fled into the water with a splash. As you walked down the road, you saw the wise mushroom moving through the deep darkness of the trees, her pale spores flowing in a fog behind her. In her left hand she held a small lantern, and in her right hand she held a crooked knife stained green. I'm a follower. You left the path and followed her from a distance. She walked into a towering buttress roots of an ancient strangler fig and cut the vines and swamp flowers from it to reveal a small blue door, inlaid with precious moonstone and intricate engravings. Gorge, guzzle, gulp, and grab. Never shall this wound scab. In your notes, write down that you know the password. With this, the door opened before her. Wait, do I actually need have a notebook for this game? I thought that it was like... That's okay. Thus the door opened before her, and she vanished inside immediately. You're gonna enter the door. You quickly snuck inside before the door closed behind you. I am a child of the devil, after all. Inside, you were shocked to find the tree completely hollow. A boundless cavern was formed inside of it, cold as ice despite the heat outside. The floor of the cavern was piled with rubies and pearls and glinting onyx and solid gold pieces larger than your fist. All across the room you saw lush silks and pillars of precious metal, of every type and all manner of riches that would turn the King of Kings green with envy. The glimmering magenta incense smoke rolled across the room and coated it all in a dark haze, smelling of the most incredible spices and herbs and enchanting odors. Oh, darling, what are you doing back again? The mushroom popped up, startling you. I'm sure I remember telling you quite clearly, never to darken my door again. She looked off to the side. Yes, I'm just telling them now. One moment. Have some common courtesy, darling. Please, I don't barge into your house looking wild and disheveled and try to steal the untold riches of your domain, do I? Not without an invitation, at least. Out with it, then. What do you want? I don't think I've ever been here before. Darling, you're confused, you're babbling, you're all over the place. Please, you're a mess. More so than usual, even. You were here just a minute ago. The you with the cloak and the long legs. Perhaps you should sit down and take a moment. Can I get you anything? Decaying plant matter? It's all the rage back home. Out with it, then. What do you want? What does this mean with the cloak? I'm sorry, darling. It's been a long day already. I don't have time to explain your body to you. Again. Out with it, then. What do you want? I guess I'll ask for some water. Some water would be nice, please. Water? Really? How conventional. What's wrong with water? Oh, nothing. It's fine, if you're into that sort of thing. It's just a bit derivative, isn't it? A bit played out. You know, I'm a lumbering humanoid. I love digesting liquids in order to sustain my bodily functions. Da-dee-da-dee-da, etc., etc. It's really the type of harmful stereotype we want to play into. I can drink something else. No, no, don't push yourself. It's fine. We can't all be innovators. I'll go get the water. Please, have a seat and relax. But do not, under any circumstances, go into the basement. She waved to a small black door set in the bark of the tree. An ominous glow shone through the crack beneath it. The wood was marked with strange and terrible sigils. You heard a low whispering beyond. Be right back. She left the room, trusting your kindness and good nature. Unfortunately, I chose the devil run, so I am going to immediately disobey and open the basement door in accordance with my wicked nature. Naturally, you open the basement door. I'm gonna take this moment to clear my nose and stuff. Oakley dokley, let us get back to business. Within, you saw a most terrible sight. 7 mushroom corpses hung in the room, dripping black ichor, each being feasted upon by a fat, blue-tongued wizard. Every one of them was identical to the Lady Mushroom herself. Oh, what is this? Fool! The mushroom appeared from the earth before you with a terrible crash. You have asked about what concerns you not, and so you will hear what pleases you not. I gave you a fair warning, darling. Now all your milk will spoil, and your bread will burn, your socks will always be wet, and you will live in torment for the rest of your days. No, no! Don't say I didn't tell you so. You cried out and set about wailing and tearing your clothes to pieces and beating yourself upon the ground in pitiful anguish. Please, Lady Mushroom, spare me your curse. If you do, I will tell you a story the likes of which would cause you to go white with astonishment if you were to hear it. Ha! Please. I've talked with the ferns who saw the dinosaurs rise and fall. I am one with the mosses and the lichens of the land who are even older still. I have talked to ancient trees who saw the inferno and the deluge and yet still stand. What could you possibly tell me that I don't already know? I suppose I'll tell her about my godparent, but it feels like everybody already knows that. It also feels like she would know about the festival. I was hoping I could tell her the pig story. I'm on my way to the festival, and there will be people there from all over this cryptic earth. Surely one of them will have a story you haven't heard before. The mushroom grew quiet as she thought over your proposal, and you prayed to the Most High, may he watch over us always, to deliver you from this terrible situation. Very well, dear. I'll let you go. But be warned, if you fail to return to me this very night with a story you have promised me, then your punishment will be tenfold. You will be fated to trip over a stone and into the ocean and drown, and when you die, your ghost will come back as a wild dog and harry your mother and father all the way at night, nipping at their heels until they both fall into deep wells and turn into terrible black fish that will lie forever there at the bottom of those pits, moaning weakly and cursing the ungrateful child who brought them such devastation and woe. Joke's on you, I'm an orphan. No! She struck the ground, it opened before her, and she disappeared into it instantly. You set about rolling around on the floor, even more pitiful devastation and horror than before, tears streaming from your eyes at this terrible curse. Finally, you were forced to pick yourself up and carry on. Thus, you went on your way to the festival, fretting and worrying all the while. Now you had two burdens, to escape the grip of your godfather, and to find a story that could satisfy the disdainful mushroom. Never again, you cried to yourself, will I ask of what concerns me not. As you were walking down the road thusly, you came upon an old beggar woman. Her eyes were blind, and her back was crooked in 5 directions at once, and her hair floated all around her head like a twisting gray fog, and she hobbled about with only the aid of an old cane to help her along. Might you lend a hand for a frail old woman? The woods are dark tonight, and I thought I heard howling from the space between the trees. Yeah, I'm just going to straight up just walk into that space and call her bluff. Wait, please, surely you'll help a poor old woman. I don't think you want to go that way. These woods grow dark swiftly. I'm going to keep walking. Without a word, you left the old woman behind and walked deeper and deeper into the woods. Darkness fell around you. You walked for long hours. At last you came to the bank of an ancient lake. It had never been sounded by the sons of men. No wisdom reaches such depths. The waters burned like a torch. The light of them fell upon your face. His face is scribed in a single coiling line, like that of coiled entrails of men and beasts, from which omens might be read. His chest is like a raging flood. His brow devours the reed beds, a lion eating a corpse. He never wipes away the blood before a man can, within even 60 times 60 yards, reached his house when he looks up. Of death, Mark Swiftler and Ty, some scholars describe, record examples of a human and therefore not, an act of heroism, the being. A rabbit pursued by hounds would die rather than save its life by entering the water. That water, nothing, lay by the shore. The moon shone down on the scene. Soon, the last crumbs will be gone. You looked out on the water in silence. Not a single creature stirred. Even the air was still. Find the wolf. You will need its true name. I think that's quite enough. Let's get back to the story. The rich, dark blanket of night was softly rolling over the village as you walked in, and cooking... Oh, excuse me, that tea is getting to me. And cooking fires lit up all across the hills, one by one. It was probably actually the quesadilla. I am, in fact, lactose intolerant. Nom 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 nom. The town was overflowing with people, bustling about and preparing for the festival, pulling up chairs and laying stacked tables around the enormous bonfire in the center of town. Over the bonfire was a thick, suckling pig on a spit, slathered in rosemary and garlic butter and herbs of all types, and stuffed with breadcrumbs and fresh figs and crisp walnuts and apples and all the fruits of the earth. The mangoes were in season, and the trees were so weighed down with them that they would fall off and roll down the town gutters, so that the whole town was rich with the sweet scent of fruit, mixed with the smell of wood smoke and spices, and crackling fat from the cooking fires. Those mangoes that didn't roll away fast enough were plucked up immediately and eaten by gleeful clouds of fruit bats that chittered and cackled in whirling chaos overhead. Colossal glass bowls of red sangria were placed at each table, filled with fresh oranges and giant yellow lemon slices, ground cinnamon and brandy and crisp sweet apples and ginger ale. For dessert, there were giant lemon meringue pies, made from lemons as big as your fist, covered in fresh whipped meringue from the baker's parlor. The town was overflowing with people, bustling about and preparing for the festival, pulling up chairs and laying stacked tables around the enormous bonfire in the center of town. Sit down. You took your place at the table. All the villagers were there. The cunning hunter, the young goose girl with her unruly geese, the old gloom-monger, the town mayor. The stars and the moon slowly arrived to take their places. The birds and moths in the firmament and the soft mist of night all came and were seated. But one guest was missing. No one had seen the wild witch of the woods all night. As the festival began, a terrible concern and commotion went up amongst the guests, for we all know what terrible luck it is to spurn a witch. Did her invitation go missing? Impossible, I delivered it myself. But still, the witch did not arrive, and soon everyone was a frenzy of worry. We all got given a fancy somehow, so turn all our story festival picnics with ants. None should escape. all our spoons will rust, and our forks will get stuck in the drawers. I already have enough on my hands dealing with these geese. The panic increased when the sparrow herder rushed in and waved for attention. The master thief has struck again. Oh Lord, I knew it. I swear I can hear the rattling of the goblin train already. The entire suckling pig is missing. Quick, check your valuables. The whole town turned out their pockets and discovered that all their spare change had been taken and replaced with live rats, which shrieked and leaped away and ran into the forest. No! Don't you? You stood in the middle of the village. I'm gonna investigate the edge of town. You walk out to the edge of town, where villagers ran to and fro, searching for the master thief. Some of them were strapping down a tarp. Fruit bats chirped and swirled overhead. Yeah, I'm gonna go investigate the tarp people. What's this? Shh, keep your voice down. This is all part of our plan to catch that dastardly master thief. We sure to fail. This old plan is doomed. Care to join us? How do you plan on catching the thief? With this, the hunter flexed their muscles and pulled back the tarp to reveal an ornate chest full of lustrous pebbles and stones. We'll take this out of my house and nail it to the veranda. Everyone knows the master thief can't resist anything that's nailed down. Exactly, and their love for shiny rocks is well known. Oh, and a kidnap, which happened to be passing by at just that moment. A fine plan indeed, friends. There's no way this master thief I've heard so much about could ever detect this scheme, no matter how cunning and gorgeous they are. Thanks, friend. Your confidence means a lot. Care to join us? Well, I mean, I'm like 90% positive that Echidna was the master thief. Why do you guys plan on catching the thief? They stole my courage. They stole my wisdom. They stole my heart. We can't just let them run around doing as they please and getting the goose girl all hot and bothered. What if everyone decided to do that? It'd be anarchy. Hot, sweaty anarchy. Care to join us? I'm gonna ask him about the devil. I need a way to escape my godfather, the devil. Do any of you know how I could do that? I advise you to give up immediately. Well, I've heard that the witch was sworn her soul to the devil. She would know how to help you if anyone would. If only she was here tonight. Oh, I can already feel her curse upon me. Care to join us? Ask about the witch. Are you going to do anything about the witch's curse? And gain the wrath of the witch, or risk the wrath of the witch? Not on your life. I heard that she has fingers long and fat as carpet snakes, and once you fall into her clutches, you never see daylight again. I heard she has many children with the devil, who are all evil. Well, I heard that all the trees of the woods are her children, but she regards them with vicious envy, and if any of them displease her by becoming too beautiful, she strikes them down. This is why the most beautiful trees are always thunderstruck. Care to join us? I feel like I've asked them enough questions. I owe them a little bit of help, but I'm also the devil's child, so I don't really care. No worries. Have a good one. Oh, thank you. Give it up now. You already don't. We've already died countless times, and we will die countless more before this business is through. Can't you hear them? The footsteps of the ash giants? When we lit that first fire in the dark, they started walking. They're almost here now. In the right hand is a terrible sound. In the left is a terrible light. You turned and walked back. You stood in the middle of the village. You walked down to the river where the banquet was laid out before the bonfire. Some folks were gripping each other tight and crying out at the misfortune that had befallen their town. Others simply sat in glum silence. No one sat at the banquet. The food lay uneaten. You looked out over the sea. They paid no attention to you, but continued to shake their heads and watch the flames with wretched misery. G'day. Be careful as you walk around town, mate. Sticking to the center of the street and never cross the gutters without crossing a path with salt. Yeah, the gutter creatures, yeah. We're just gonna go home. Go home now. You don't want to go that way. I'm telling you, you don't want to go back there. I'm going home. All your friends are here. Adventure awaits. Why not stay? There is nothing back there you want. Trust me.
There you are. We've been looking all over for you. Come on, let's get back to the feast. We need your help to help track down that dastardly master thief. Here, I'll help you find your way back.
The hunter took a hold of your arm with surprisingly strong grip and escorted you back into the village. You walked out to the edge of town where the villagers ran to and fro searching for the master thief. Some of them were strapping down a tarp. I've already investigated the tarp. Care to join and see Alex at Robert?
Excellent! Let's be off at once.
And so you, the goose girl, the sparrow herder, and the hunter all leapt onto the cart and rattled away down the road, leaving the old gloommonger behind. You're damned. Don't worry, he says that every time we go anywhere. Soon you arrive at the young goose girl's house, which was overrun by honking devils who tore at the furniture and ransacked the pantry and snapped at everyone until she was at her wits' end. You nailed the chest down to the veranda while the goose girl kept the geese at bay. Bear traps, tripwires. Oh, the goose is gonna get him. We're gonna goose game his ass. You picked up the most disagreeable goose from the pack and carefully placed it inside the chest, shielding your eyes as it pecked at you in rage. As soon as it was inside the chest, you slammed it shut. Then the four of you ducked behind the bush to watch the chest. The geese wandered around the house, honking softly.
Now we wait. The thief will never get past us now.
I couldn't agree more, friends. This cunning and charismatic master thief character stands no chance against us.
Don't get cocky.
You lay there in silence, watching the chest. A fly landed on it. One of the geese waddled up and began to lick it.
Wait, just one moment.
The goose girl crawled out and cautiously dragged a finger over the chest, then stuck it in her mouth. It's icing! The entire chest had been replaced with a massive cake, baked to look exactly like the chest in every detail. You cut open the cake to find a fine meringue goose inside. The smell of chocolate wafted from behind you. You turned, in slow horror, realization already dawning. The goose girl's entire cottage has been replaced with a gigantic gingerbread house. Wailing, cake, master thief. We're here to look for the master thief. I'm so sorry, but we will not be wailing and woe. You looked around wildly. What a shame. Oh well, I'd be best to be off. Oh, it's holding a sec. Wait just a second. You leapt for the echidna, but it backflipped away just in time. Laughing maniacally, it ripped off its mask to reveal none other than the master thief. That's right. It was I all along. I have stolen the eyes of heaven and the hands of God, and now I use those eyes and these hands to wreak mischief and misery upon the cursed earth. Stop them! The thief fled into the forest. The others chased after them. Now cut him off. You ran deep into the forest, planning to lay an ambush for the thief. Soon, you left the others far behind. You lay in wait behind a bush until you heard their running footsteps. Then you leapt out and grabbed them. Their cloak came away with a tearing sound. The figure before you fell apart into dust. It was nothing more than a pile of dead leaves and mud, carefully posed to look like the master thief, using a cunning series of pulleys and wires. A slow clap echoed behind you. Well done, friend. The ornery goose you hid in the chest was now perched on their right shoulder, wearing the thief's mask and honking smugly. The thief's long, thin fingers toyed with some of the shiny rocks from the chest. You gave me quite the chase. I have an offer you may be interested in. You see, I've heard of you. They say you run wild over the hills, doing as you please and living in contempt of the law. You know you live near the mushroom, who has riches nearing those of the King of Kings. I plan to go there tonight and take her for all she's worth. Want to join? We could split the profits in a fair share. They flash you a charming smile. Turning to see the air of the ways. God, no, I'm the godson of the devil. I don't care. If you accept and join, yeah, I might. If you accept while secretly planning to betray the master thief at a critical moment, okay, alright, okay. Do I want to betray them? I kind of want to. Wonderful. This would be a caper for the books. You'd best be careful, though. I'm rotten to the core, and I'm sure to betray you sooner or later. The thief, honest. Like me too, my guy. The thief strode ahead on their long, long legs, and you had to run to keep up. Their nimble fingers were constantly moving, grabbing leaves off the trees or small rocks in the ground to fiddle with, and they couldn't seem to keep a single part of their bodies still for even a second. The night grew dark. You passed a river. You passed a rocky coast. You passed the ruins of the Sixth Age, a grim reminder of the inevitable destruction fast approaching your world. You passed a tree. So tell me about yourself. Got a family, a pet, likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams, nightmares? If you were to stand on a desert island, which limb would you gnaw off first? I'm talking about which one.
I think I would gnaw off an arm first.
What? No, I could never. You need that arm for survival. They flex their long, slender fingers. This is my moneymaker. If I lose it, I'm finished. Clues, clues. Foreshadowing. Clues, clues, clues. I'll take that arm.
I have a family, 10 brothers and a sister. No mother anymore, though. She was driven into the grave by my wicked ways.
My condolences and/or congratulations. I have no family, of course. One day a home toad sat on a magpie egg and I popped out fully formed. I stole my first breath of air, and then I stole these hands, and then these legs, and this body of mine, and I've been stealing ever since.
Lack of pets. No pets. I'd love to have one someday, though.
Do what I do. Talk with the magpies and the rats and the possums on the roof. You'll never be lonely again. They tossed up a hunk of bread, and a kookaburra swooped down and grabbed it out of the air. Watch this. They caught a hold of a tree bow? I don't know what a tree bow is, and spun around on it, then leapt off and landed on one foot in a nearby branch, balancing precariously. Yeah, Okay, do I clap politely, or do I... Yeah, what's your source? The goblin stopped me. They leapt off the branch and landed with perfect poise, posing dramatically. Anyway, enough of my talents for now. We're here. The colossal roots of the mushroom strangler's fig rose above you. All right, here's the job. They drew a floor plan in the dirt. The treasure is in the central chamber here. The front door can only be opened with a password. There's another entrance up on the canopy guarded by Banksia boys. Or we could try to get in here through an underground river patrolled by an old crocodile. So what's the plan? I know the password.
I saw the mushroom put in the password. We can walk straight in the front door.
You devil, you. Lead the way. You walked up to the fig and cut the vines and swamp flowers away to reveal the small blue door, inlaid with precious moonstones and intricate engravings.
Gorge, guzzle, gulp and grab. Never shall this wound scab.
The door opened to reveal a vast cavern, glittering treasure far below. You saw the gold and gems and red mist of incense, just as it was earlier in the night. Jackpot! The thief tied a rope around their waist, tied the other end to the doorknob, and began to lower themselves down to the treasure below. Come on! You saw a jeweled scimitar stuck to the wood nearby. I'm gonna betray the thief. You grabbed the scimitar and slashed through the rope in a single motion. The form of the thief fell down below. As it fell away, you saw it was nothing but a raggedy old cloak stuffed with straw. You felt a sharp point at your back. You're learning, my friend, but not quite quick enough. On guard! You whirled around and barely parried slash from the thief, but the force of the blow sent you tumbling down and onto a pile of diamonds. You pulled yourself up and fought fiercely across the glittering hills of treasure, gold pieces sliding away with every step. The master thief effortlessly riposted your blows with one hand, while the other one darted around grabbing nearby gems and stuffing them into their cloak. Oh dear. Another mushroom, identical to the lady, emerged from a side door. I know. It's awful. I mean, what is she trying to say here? I think we can find a vague stab towards meaningless performance, but who's the audience? You stumbled and teetered at the edge of a cliff as the thief's stabs push you backwards. Another identical mushroom popped up. Perhaps it's meant to be ironic? Perhaps it's satirical. Yes, but what is it satirizing? You regained your footing and slashed the thief's sword out of their hands. Just as you were on the brink of victory, mushrooms swarmed up and surrounded you. I think we've seen enough. It's time to get off the stage. Before you could blink, they took hold of your ankles and dragged you down into the earth. Shh. The master thief managed to wriggle out of their grasp. Au revoir, my friend. You heard the thunder of rattling train carriage outside. In a smooth motion, they leapt out the window, onto the train, and out of sight. That was the last thing you saw before you were dragged underneath the earth. You were pulled down through untold layers of dirt by your ankles. You heard the mushrooms whisper around you. Everything's going to be okay. You're safe here. Shh. Soon you emerged into a colossal underground kingdom, lit with flickering silver light. All around you pressed a blooming mass of web caps, milk caps, scarlet elf caps, poison pies, deceivers, pink gills, brittle gills, veiled ladies, lawyer wigs, stink horns, earth stars, beefsteaks, chicken of the woods, earth balls, sculpted puff balls, yellowfoots, lungworts, brown-eyed wolves, golden-eyed umbrellas, Satan's boleys, false chanterelles, death caps, and destroying angels, and all members of the mysterious dark taxa, the dark matter fungi that lie unknown to mankind. They all swept to and fro through a twisted city of endless tunnels. The shape of a giant, pale, and broken mountain loomed over the city, barely visible through the fog of spores. I was about to win. Why have you kidnapped me? Darling, trust us. That sad production wasn't going to win anything. You were hurting yourself. Hurting yourself? Please, don't take the criticism too personally. It was an intriguing bit of invisible theater. We do respect the way you put everything into the role. Dozens of identical mushrooms pressed around you, speaking in soft, overlapping voices. I think it might be best if you stay here until I know that you're safe. Until I know that you're safe. It's for the best if you stay here. I'll watch over you, watch over. You were taken through a decadent palace of yellow chanterelles and given robes of fine moss. Your room was lushly furnished with soft covers woven from black mushroom silk, and all the gems and gold and treasures of the earth were available to you. You will be safe here. Where am I? The mushroom looked at you sadly. We've talked about this many times, darling. Don't you remember? This is the kingdom of Lady Death, mother of mushrooms. I am her fingers, and we take all things on earth to her. Would you like me to tell you the story again? You will be safe here. She sat down and began to tell you her tale. Once upon a time, Death came for our dear Lord, as it was his appointed time. He did not wish to go, and so they battled across the limitless sea of the world. They fought for 40 days and 40 nights, but eventually the Heavenly Father got the upper hand. He broke Our Lady across the sky and cut off her hands and threw her down into the deepest pit underground. She was so weak that she could not pull herself up. What will become of the world, she asked herself, if I just lie here? There will be no more deaths, and soon there will be so many people in the world that they will not have the room to stand next to each other. And so she extended her long, broken arms so that her fingers poked out of the soil. Those fingers are the mushrooms. We provide food for the poor and the animals of the forest, and support the plants and connect them together. But most importantly, we do the work. We take hold of the dead and the dying, and the old wood and old bones, and carry it all the way down to our kingdom, far underground. We work slowly. We are patient. Soon the world will be complete, and everything will rest here inside her kingdom, as was intended when the world began. The mushrooms gestured to the pale mountain looming over the city through the fog of spores. Her body still lies there, broken. It is what the hills and forests and continents are built on. It is but rarely that she can walk among men as she once did. May I have some food? Of course, one moment. The mushrooms took one of their number out of the room. There was a chopping sound from outside. In moments they returned with a rich mushroom stew. Here, you will be safe here. May I be allowed out of my room? Do you promise not to hurt any of yourselves? Yes, I do. Very well, I will come with you. You can go anywhere in the kingdom, but if I ever feel that you are in danger to yourself, we'll have to take you back here. You walked out into the lush expanse of the underground kingdom. Rich moss and lichens flowered from every surface. Don't worry, I know about your godfather. He cannot reach us here. Every type of fungi bustled around you. I want to explore the moss garden. The mushrooms showed you all the wonders of that undiscovered land, where life and death go hand in hand. You saw the four seasons all flowering at once. To the north, the cicadas and crickets chirped loudly in the summer haze. To the south, the ground was silver white with snow. To the west, the autumn rains fell, and to the east was the full glory of spring. Out in the distance, you noticed a picnic rug lying on the moss of a lonely hillside. The wonders of those gardens were so stunning that the tongue fails to describe them, and you walked and watched for days until your eyes were so full that they couldn't stand to see another scrap of beauty. A tad garish, isn't it? Every type of fungi bustled around you. Explore the root embassy. The mushroom took you down to show you the deep, ancient roots of the whole forest above you. Delicate fungal networks wove through every root, carrying vital letters and trade agreements and treaties to every plant in the woods. You spent days among them, learning their intricate customs. You realized that the forest you knew was an intricate web of delicate alliances between opposing factions that hated each other with bitter envy. Exhausting, isn't it? But it must be done. If we didn't do this, the whole forest would probably fall into an all-out war, and then we'd never get the work done. Every type of fungi bustled around me. I'll feast in the palace. As soon as you entered the palace, a train of toadstools appeared, all in ceremonial garb with silent steps. They surrounded you, bearing delicacies of mushroom risotto, and crisp goose, roasted in truffle butter, and dark red wine, and platters of mushroom. Oh, that's a word to say. Bourguignon. Bourguignon. With roast potatoes, and set this wondrous feast before you. You have to try the truffle aioli, darling. That's my absolute favorite. You eat mushrooms? Of course, and one day they will eat me. Never in your life had you sat down to such a marvelous feast, and you gorged yourself for days on end until they had to roll you out of the palace. I'd like to explore the lands of shadows in the vast mountain. The mushroom took you closer to the shape you saw from the palace. It loomed over you, larger than life. With a start, you saw that it was breathing. This is the lady. She waits here while we do the work. The work? We take all things down here, one by one. It's slow work, but already those down here outnumber the ones above. We are more than halfway done. Someday, everyone and everything will be down here. On that day, the lady will draw her fingers down through the soil back to her. We will finally have completed the piece, our magnum opus. It will be spectacular, I assure you, darling. Don't look yet. It's not finished. Barely a first draft, really. I'd be so embarrassed if you saw it in its current state. So much left to do. No need to worry. We have all the time in the world. You felt a strange peace in the shadow of the pale lady, and you stayed there with the mushrooms for many days, looking out at the splendor of the world. May I return home? Such were the wonders of that kingdom that you almost forgot everything, even the riches you left behind and your 10 siblings and your own country. But soon your mind came back to you, and you realized that you did not belong to this wonderful land, and so you said to the mushroom,
I've been very happy with you, and you've been kinder to me than words can tell, but I must go back. Oh, darling, no. Do you have to go? Why not stay here with me?
I am the child of the devil. I get what I want.
I don't think that I want to leave you. It's just that I must see my old country again.
I see. Well, I'm sure we can't stand in your way. Take these to remember us by, please. She handed you a black box tied with a tassel of red silk. This is the box of the jeweled hand, and it holds something very precious. Do not open it, no matter what happens. And so you promised that you would never open the box, and the mushrooms took hold of you and bore you back up to the surface. You blinked in the harsh light of the sun above, and found that your eyes had become almost blind in the darkness below. Your skin was pale and shrunken. As you looked around, a strange anxiety gripped you. The ancient old strangler figure remembered was gone. You couldn't see the blue door to the mushroom's domain. As you walked down the road to your house, something seemed wrong. The people you saw walking past had different faces to the people you knew so well before. Even your old house was a different shape. You walked up to your old home and called out, "Mom, I'm back." Why am I calling out to my mom? My mom's dead. But just as you were about to enter, a strange man came out. "Who are you?" "What? Who are you? And why do you twist in that crooked way?"
"We're all crooked now, child. It's the law. But answer my question."
"My name is Nix Litton."
"Don't joke around like that. It's true that someone by the name of Nix Litton once lived here, but that is a tale 300 years old. She couldn't possibly be alive now."
When you heard those odd words, a terrible fear gripped you, and you ran out onto the street and through the twisting alleyways, and the forest you knew was gone. A gray rain of ash fell ceaselessly across the land from gray clouds above down onto the bent and crooked gray people of the realm, who huddled in grim shelters underneath places that hideously resembled the hills and lakes and villages you once knew.
My tea's gone cold.
Over and over you heard them mutter of the ash giants, and you heard terrible footfalls shake the earth from the distant place, growing closer every moment. The awful feeling came over you that what the old man said was true. Each day you spent in the underground kingdom was 100 years on earth. You ran through the gray streets and parking lots and abandoned shopping centers and the vast decayed echoing airports and twisting subterranean toll roads and subway tunnels, last remnants of a loose and raving hunger that had scooped out the whole of this hollow earth and left it in its wake only the slow landfall rivers that boiled around you with the serpentine motion of the secluded trash queens as you stumbled through them into the suffocating silence of cracked bitumen roads and empty apartment complexes packed with flickering TV screens of silence. But try as you might, you couldn't find the way back to the kingdom you left. Finally, a crooked red hand fell on your shoulder. You turned to see the cackling face of the old serpent himself. "Now you see that no matter how long you hide, none can escape the devil's clutches. Come with me, and we will dance together in hell forever." You felt the weight of the mushroom's box in your pocket.
I want to know what happens.
Having lost everything dear to you, you realized that there was no reason not to open it.
At such a time, surely I will find something inside this box to save me and lead me back to the mushroom.
"What are you doing? No!" You untied the red silk and lifted the lid of the precious box. As soon as you did, all of your years rushed out of the box, and they came upon you at once. Your hair grew and turned white, your back twisted into a knot with age, your face wrinkled up, and you fell down dead in an instant. Memento mori. Poor thing, I wept to see your woeful fate. Because of your disobedience, never would you live to see your loved ones again. Little children, never to be disobedient to those who are wiser than you, for disobedience is the mother of all misery and father of all woe. Oh? And what happened to the thief, you asked? After you were taken, they strolled down away from the tree, laughing and clutching at their ill-gotten gains.
"Another successful heist."
"Hold it right there." The hunter, the sparrow herder, and the goose girl leapt from the bushes and surrounded the thief, holding pitchforks and rakes and an old shovel.
"Looks like your day is done, scoundrel." "Yeah, we got you bangs to rights, we have."
Three of them jeered and prodded the thief with glee. "Ah, well, if you think you're going to take me to jail, I'm afraid." The thief trailed off. There was a sound in the woods, a low hush and ragged sound like a howl in the wind. Did you hear that? Was that the wolf? Don't try to distract us, you wretched cur. There are no wolves in Australia.
"Yeah, we won't be turned away that easily."
The two of them jabbed at the thief. It was always just the two of them, the hunter and the sparrow herder cornering the thief. No one else was there.
"Come on, let's grab them."
The thief looked down. There was a dark red stain on the ground in the dirt where a third person would have stood. But of course, no such person had ever been there. "Something's wrong. I think we need to run." The trees rustled as if the movement of something colossal.
"Ha! You'd like that, wouldn't you? Just when I've got you cornered. Now you're coming with me, chum."
The sparrow herder grabbed the thief. The two of them were alone in the clearing. There was no one else.
"Come on." "Hold on,
The thief dragged the sparrow herder through the woods and burst out of the woods into a field with a small cottage surrounded by geese.
"What are you doing?"
It was echoing and empty. No one lived here but geese. No one ever had.
Help! Somebody help us! Who are you calling out to, thief? You're alone. You always have been. No, they're right here. They
looked around. There was no one there. The trees were silent. No animals lived in this part of the woods. No bird calls troubled its vast, silent depths. The woods were dead. The thief ran through the forest, ragged and alone. They searched their memories. Had there ever been a time before this one? Another place? Had there ever been anyone else in the world but them? They could remember nothing except this, a single frozen moment running through the woods in fear, alone. There was nothing else. There had never been anything else. Hot breath warmed the back of their neck. They ran as fast as they could, but it was no use, of course. There was nowhere to run.
Please,
And then there was nothing. The woods were empty. There was never anything there at all. Just a ragged, midnight cloak, stained red, that floated in the way of the breeze and was gone forever. It was never seen again. Damn, this is a good game. Like, the religious undertones are a bit much for me, but like, I'll get through them for this. And goodbye, thief. Okay, witch or mushroom next? I say witch. I haven't actually done too much with the witch yet. Like, I went. Oh, I didn't even realize the title was changing. The witch and the mushroom. Once there was, and once there wasn't. Actually, I'm going to take a second here. One moment before we actually begin this, I'm going to fill up my water and start some more tea. Okay, I'll get until we get to the town, and then I'll go grab that tea. See, I have to set a timer for myself, or I'm not actually gonna get up and do it, and then there'll just be tea sitting there. Once there was, and once there wasn't. In the long, distant days of yore, when the haystacks winnowed sieves, when genies played and jeered in the old... Whoa. In the old bathhouse, fleas were barbers, camels were town criers. I softly rocked my baby grandmother to sleep in her creaking cradle. In an exotic land, far, far away, there was a woman who lived in a vast rainforest full of strange, empty spaces. To the north, there was nothing and no one. To the west, a cackling witch. To the east, there was nothing and no one. To the south, a wise mushroom. Yet she had little time to think about these things, for she had 4 children and had to work day and night just to feed them. When you were born to her as the 5th, she had no idea what to do. She took you up in her arms and ran to the darkness of the forest, promising that she would ask the first man she meant to be her godfather. It's running out of food. In the darkness of the forest, she may or may not have met a man in white. Is anything certain these days? His right hand held a dove, nose a gun, the other a crisp dollar bill, the other's hand pillar of fire. He was perfect, he was too bright to look upon, I knew it was his mind. Wouldn't be the godfather, blah, 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 blah. Yes, as I have foreseen. He bowed down and placed his great hand upon you, leaving his mark on your right hand. You will name her Nixlin. I will come for the child, and the moment she turns 18, keep her safe for me until then. Just make sure you're there for the christening. But he was already gone. I am the godchild of the King of Queens. And so you grew up as a kind and well-mannered child, and you made your mother proud. You went to church every Sunday and worked hard every day of your life, and never did you succumb to the beast within. All the neighbors smiled and said, "That one has the mark of God upon her." Your godfather was as good as his word. He appeared at the church for the christening and blessed you. You soon found that luck was always in your favor, and everyone took to calling you Fortune's favorite. Your mother loved you very much, and you lived with her and your 4 siblings in a house on stilts on the banks of a muddy river in a vast rainforest. Each night you would fall asleep and under the patchwork quilt she knitted for you. You woke every morning to the chorus of birds and fell asleep every evening to the crickets. Let me hear about my neighbors. But inside your body your bones roiled and your flesh threatened to rot. At times, even your own hands turned against you and scuttled out into the night to cause terrible mischief while you slept, so that you would wake to find strange signs and marks and bites upon them, and jeweled rings on each crooked finger. Your skull was haunted by restless ghosts that cradled your brain and forced terrible thoughts into your mind at all hours. The bones in your spine became infested with sprites, which made your back crack and twisted in painful ways all through your long life. The blood in your veins was, of course, only red water Nixie that had pulsed through your body, constantly seeking escape, and even your soul itself was simply a small shard of God, caught inside you and vibrating wildly. Not a single scrap of your own body, mind, or soul was actually your own. There was no you, just a collection of monsters writhing in borrowed skin. Oh, interesting. My house, the domain. Moonhead is to the left, same with the witch. Rillo chirp. The great fog, the ghost maze. The tongue reef. The bone beach. Coleslaw. Abandoned ice cream factory. Beasts, poisoned hogs. The back of beyond. What happens to the north? To the north, there was nothing and no one. To the east, there was nothing and no one. In fact, the south river and the forest around was watched over by a wise mushroom ambassador who had owned these lands since before anyone could remember. On cold, clear nights, you could see her walking through the depths of the forest with her white veil and delicate waves of silver spores drifting behind her. She allowed your family to live on the river and use her lands under one condition. Ask not what concerns you not, lest you hear what pleases you not. Your family accepted her wishes, and so let each other be. She was often away, brokering trade agreements and peace treaties and delicate alliances between the many trees and plants and warring ferns of the forest. Or so it was said.
I'm gonna grab my tea. I'll be right back. I swear, 2 seconds.
I realized that my mug is very hot. This mug is bad for this. Ow, owie. I should have waited. Sorry, that hurt. What about to the west? What happens in the lands of the west? None dared venture to the western mountains, for all lands around it were said to be home to a terrible witch. Her hut lay deep under a secret lake, and she would emerge on moonless nights when the waters of that lake turned still and silver green. The witches held their Sabbath on the mountain to the east, and when the sky was clear, you could see the peak blaze with fire, and the destroyer himself would emerge to dance in the firelight. Or so it was said. Am I happy here? Well, it was a happy home. The house was always full of chatter from your 4 siblings, and you were always cramped for space with all of them around. But at night, when the others had gone to bed, you felt a latent silence lurking in the house. Underneath the old floorboards, inside the crooked walls, waiting for its time to come. Not long now. Alas, all too soon, the eve of your 18th birthday arrived. You set about in wild terror, for you knew that your godfather would come to take you away as soon as the clock struck midnight, and you had no wish to leave just yet. You must go to the festival tonight, my child. There will be travelers there from all over this wild earth. Surely one of them will know how to save you from this terrible fate. She gave you a thick coin purse and some bread and meat for the journey. Go, but be careful of strangers, and do not leave the path. A terrible wolf lurks out there in the space between the trees. And so you took up your belongings and strode on down the road to the festival. The twilight set in, the crickets and cicadas all around began their chattering and squabbling, and the evening birds began to laugh and trill as the wet, cool mist of the rainforest settled around you. The crooked old water dragons looked sideways at you and plotted their long, slow schemes. A small turtle saw you coming and fled into the water with a splash. As you walked down the road, you saw the wise mushroom moving through the deep darkness of the trees, her pale spores flowing in a fog behind her. In her left, she held a small lantern, and in her right hand she held a crooked knife stained green. I'm an honest Christian. See, I knew it was Christianity. You turned and kept on walking down the path, just as your mother taught you. In the depths of the woods, you heard nothing. You saw no one. You were alone. You continued down the empty road. And so it was that you stayed on the path the whole way, following your mother's advice and never once being tempted by the offers of strangers. Some protagonist you turned out to be. As you walked up to the village, no one greeted you. The woods were silent. You slowly walked out of the woods and into the village streets. The town was overflowing with people, bustling about, preparing for the festival, pulling up chairs and laying stacked tables around the enormous bonfire in the center of town. You took your place at the table. All the villagers were there. The old gloommonger, the town mayor. The stars and the moon slowly arrived to take their places, and the birds and moths and the firmament and the soft mist and night all came and were seated. But one guest was missing. No one had seen the wild witch of the woods all night. As the festival began, a terrible concern and commotion went up amongst all the guests, for we all know what terrible luck it is to spurn a witch. Did her invitation go missing? But still, the witch did not arrive, and soon everyone was a frenzy of worry. Cries of woe and fear rang out as the town fell into anarchy. Children were crying, the adults tore at their clothes, and they rolled on the ground and begged God to free them from this terrible curse. You stood in the middle of the village to investigate the banquet. You walked down the river where the banquet was laid out, and before the bonfire, some folks were gripping each other in tight and crying at the misfortune that had befallen their town. Others simply sat in glum silence. No one sat at the banquet. The food lay uneaten. They paid you no attention to you, but continued shaking their heads and watching the flames of the wretched misery. Talk to the mayor. If you're going out to hunt the witch, be wary. They say Moonhead walks these roads at night. They say his front face is full moon and the back face is a new moon. If he looks at you with his bright face, you can tell nothing but the truth. If he looks at you with his dark face, you can tell nothing but lies. His robes are rich blue silk with clouds and fog rippling across them, and they flow around him in the hypnotizing waves as he dances, or so they tell me at least. He leaps through the trees, calling for his disciples, the lost and the insane, and they all spring together through the woods with glee, singing moon-mad songs. Oh, I've already read this one before. Just watching how things change through 3 volumes. Blah, 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 blah. It's quite the sight. He winked at my mother once, and I never saw her again. Sometimes I still hear her laughter on moonless nights. You returned and walked back to the center of the village. You walked to the edge of town. It's waiting. Fruit bats chirped and swirled overhead. I talked to the groommonger. Nick's Litton, isn't it? Lovely name. Did you choose it yourself? You know, secret lies in that place where names are chosen. Perhaps you could go there now and choose another name. Perhaps you will find something if you choose the right name. Perhaps the name of an ancient king, who can say? It won't save us, of course. Nothing will. We're already dead. So if he wants me to change my name to the name of the King of Kings, or an ancient king. Okay, alright, let's go back to the Bible here. Which name are we going with? Because God is known as God. He's also known as Yahweh. And then there's also Jesus. Trinity. Let's just call myself God. And he, him. Fruit bats chirped and swirled overhead. We'll see if that works. You wandered into the woods. Turn to page 150. I want to return to the village. Hello, mate. Here's a tip. They might have more to say. It's true. Try it on us. That's the spirit. They gibbered and twirled in glee. I'm going to do Australia. Right, so we're supposed to be in Australia here because there's no wolves in Australia. So let's talk to the gutterlings again. Just make sure not to talk to a gutterling 6 times or it'll own your soul forever. I'm kind of wanted to. Yep, you definitely don't want to do that. Gotcha! In a wink, they leapt out and stuffed you into a sack. Down you went through the crooked drain pipes and secret channels of the village, deep down to the gutter of all gutters, where the gutterlings grew their secret garden, fed by all the lost and discarded things from the world of mankind above. Here the gutterlings stole away those lost things, planting them in the fertile soil of their damp kingdom and nourishing them with drain water from the above world. Every full moon they would cut small pieces from them, and from those cuttings they grew more gutterlings. Now escape now, fool. We warned you, and now you will never again see the light of the accursed sun above. I can't do their accent consistently. It's going to be changing constantly. It's just going to be different gutterlings each time I talk to them, okay? Alright, that's what we're going with. They planted you in the soil and left you to ferment. Your skin crawled, and you realized you would soon bud with the gutterlings. You could hear the gutterlings squirming nearby. I'm going to look around. All the lost things from human villages and cities washed down here to form this kingdom of the lost. Around you was a nest of shambolic huts made of twigs and straw and rubbish, and looming above you, you could see a castle built of lost monuments and broken statues. To your side was a huge mound of left socks, a mound of keys laid to the other side. In front of you was the library book that you'd been looking for. You could hear the gutterlings squirming nearby. No, why? No. Oh, woe is me. How could I have been so foolish as to talk to a gutterling 6 times? The gutterlings laughed at your pathetic cries. You could hear the gutterlings squirming nearby. Help, help! Alas, no one heard you. There was no one left to hear. You could hear the gutterlings squirming nearby. I will pray to my godparent. You held your hands together and prayed for your godfather, the everlasting, to save you. You waited a long while in silence. Then a flash of light washed over you. In an instant, you were free from the soil. She's escaping! Get her! You ran helter-skelter through the drowned streets of the Undercity, dodging the budding gutterlings left and right. In the distance, you heard the approach of a great and terrible shape, a crawling god formed from the lost dreams planted in this dark soil centuries ago, and fed every full moon. It loomed over you and spoke.
You have broken the compact, Lord. All lost things belong in my domain, and this child surely is lost.
A great voice boomed out. Is it you who has forgotten? Who gave you that body? Who granted you your domain? Do not overstep yourself, wretch. Everything under heaven belongs to me. The Gutter King shrank back, groveling from the bright light, and you took the moment to flee from the pit and back up to the village above. Do not forget this, child. Your soul belongs to me. I will come for you soon. In a blink, the light was gone. You stand in the middle of the village. You don't want to go back home. I'm telling you, you don't want to go back there. All your friends are here. Adventure awaits. Why not stay? There is nothing back there you want. Trust me. Whatever you think you're going to find down that road, you're wrong. There's nothing for you at home anymore. This is the last time I'll tell you. Go back to the fire where it's safe. Fine. You walk through the village gates and into the forest. The woods grew dark. You passed the crooked old water dragons. The old turtle eyed you from the water. You heard sirens in the distance. The trees slowly thinned. You walked out of the woods and down a bitumen path. You wandered down an empty street. A cold wind was blowing. The cold started to sink into your bones. The only light was from an empty Hungry Jack's on the side of the road. The sign shone bright in the night. An apartment block was nearby. You waited for a gap in the traffic and then crossed the road. You walked up to the unit. You knew which one it was. A warm light flickered in the window. A look in the window. The room inside was dark except for a small fireplace with a chair facing it. There was a figure in the chair, dimly lit by the coals. You could not see its face. Be careful. Everything else was dark. You pulled on the window, but it refused to open. Search around the apartment. You walked around the apartment block. You'll only get one chance. There was no sign of another way in. I haven't learned its true name yet, though. If this is the wolf, and I have not yet learned its true name, I'm gonna fucking lose, and it's gonna make me disappear. And I have a feeling I'm going to start the game over again if I do that. So I'm going to go back to the village. I'm going to go to the banquet. I'm going to wander into the woods. You turned and walked into the darkness of the woods. No one stopped you. The woods were quiet. Ooh, look at that. Brain eater eating all them little mushrooms. Silence lurked behind the trees. You discovered the muddy cave on the riverside. Go to page 120. Searching for the witch. Aimlessly find it. I want to search for the witch. You walked through the woods. Somehow, you already knew the way to the witch's cottage. Have you been this way before? Couldn't recall. The trail took you through a dense swamp of crooked mangroves. Soon you began to see the glimmer of silver light in the darkness. The swamp was covered in puddles of water from the rains. Each one shone with light. All around you, the woods were dark and empty, but when you looked into the water, you saw the reflection of a shining cottage below.
Tea time.
Not enough sugar, I don't think, or I just didn't stir it. I did put in 2 scoops, that's usually enough. For a brief moment, you thought you saw a figure reflected in the water, but as soon as you blinked, it was gone. I'm going to jump into the puddle. Your world flipped over, you felt strange water pass over you, and cold chill tingled all through your body. When you opened your eyes, you were standing the right way up again. The floor was a silver mirror. The world shone white. The center of the puddle was the cottage, shining with light. Up over the walls grew a riot of herbs and flowers of every type, planted directly in the soil, rambling over everything, and growing green, lush grass garden on the roof. The witch. Oh, good! You stumbled back in surprise as a small witchy figure popped out from behind the herbs. Her hands were covered in ink. She had a fountain pen tucked behind her ear, a chaotic scramble of notepaper tucked under one arm, and a thick bundle of string wrapped around her hand. You're just in time. Nick's Litton, right? She took out a fork, wrapped the string, and planted it firmly by her doorstep. It was labeled A1. You looked around and noticed that her whole backyard was littered with forks stabbed into the ground. Each fork was tied with a knot of string and labeled with a letter of the alphabet. The lines of string led to a massive tangle of twine in her front window. Come on. I've got to figure out a good voice for her, all right? So she kind of speaks in like a modern way sometimes. So come on, you're just in time. Like, come on, you're just in time for the next round of experiments. Like, yeah, let's go like a little bit of like, yeah, let's go. Come on, you're just in time for the next round of experiments. She grabbed your hand and pulled you inside. Inside the cottage was a wild clutter of books and herbs and plants of all description, growing up the walls and roofs. The cottage was cramped, but the walls were covered with lines of string and notes and papers scrawled with indecipherable writing. The floor was covered in a network of flags and string in a grid pattern, each flag marked with a letter and a number. You stepped over them gingerly to enter the room. A message was painted across the wall in giant red letters. I own 32 forks. We have 2 experiments running at the moment. You heard something move outside the cottage. What do you want to see? How did you know I was coming? Crystal ball, perks of being a witch. I was watching your house. She laid her pile of notes down the kitchen bench and scribbled in them as she talked. There were dark bags under her eyes. It was clear she hadn't slept in days. I was so happy when I saw you were coming. There was something here you need to see. You looked at the walls of the cottage and noticed something wasn't right with them. They looked like a picture that had been folded in on itself and reflected. The witch didn't seem to notice. What do you want to see? All of them just turned to page 236.
What's experiment 1?
The witch gestured to the network of flags at her feet. This is what started everything. When I woke up a few days ago, I noticed something. Usually when I make my morning tea, it takes me 4 steps to get from the kettle to my front door. But when I made it that morning, it took me 3 steps.
What?
It's shrinking, you see. She points at the grid of flags laid all across the cottage floor. The flags start here. She pointed to the front left corner of the cottage at a flag labeled G02. And they end here. She pointed to a lower right corner of the house at a flag labeled C10. But why would I do that? Why would I start the naming system at G02 instead of A01? How does that make any sense as a numbering system?
It doesn't?
Exactly! Here's my hypothesis. The initial numbering system began at A01. Since then, the space has shrunk. That is why the system now begins this flag here, H03. She pointed at the starting flag. But if the cottage was shrinking, we'd notice it. Not necessarily. My theory is that there is some kind of pressure or force that is stopping us from noticing or remembering. I just couldn't prove it until I hit on the fork hypothesis. She looked at you with a cold certainty. Things are being devoured, not just from physical reality, but from our minds. You stared down at the starting flag in the front left corner of the cottage. It read, I-03, just as it always had. You blinked and rubbed your eyes furiously. There was a queer distortion in the air. The air was completely clear and the cottage was well lit, but still, for some reason, you couldn't see more than 5 feet ahead of you. What do you want to see? Experiment number 2, please. The witch took you over to her front window, which you could see was stuffed with a giant knotted network of strings. The string was labeled with all the letters of the alphabet. It stretched out the window and out the window. You looked outside and saw that it was tied to dozens of forks stuck in the soil all over her property. Once I encountered the lacuna phenomenon. I tried to think of a way to measure it.
Lacuna?
A gap, a blind spot, a space that shouldn't be there. I tried to figure out where it's coming from, what's causing it. I tested out the time of day, no result there. Are some objects more likely to disappear than others? Again, no visible pattern. I had a breakthrough when I considered that it might be location-based, emanating from a particular point. The closer an object is to that point, the more likely it is to disappear. But I couldn't make any meaningful progress because I couldn't prove whether or not something had disappeared. She held up a fork. Say this fork vanished, and not only that, but it vanished so completely that you never remembered it existed at all. How could you prove that it ever existed? How could you prove something used to exist if that thing now does not exist and it never did? Suggest making notes. Suggest using magic. You have no idea. She's clearly already making notes. Let's try magical beans. Fantastic idea, but sadly impractical. I've consulted the devil on this, of course. I suspect he knows more than he's letting on, but sadly, his comments have been completely unscientific, totally useless for an experiment like this. No, I've only found one way to detect the change. String. She reached up and quickly tugged at each piece of the string in the window and turned. Most of them held firm. One of them showed no resistance when she tugged. She pulled that one through the window. It was a long, long piece, and she rapidly wound it up until it came through the window. The end was tied in a loop, with nothing inside. You see? When an object vanishes, everything around it stays the same. So even though the fork is gone, the string remains. She pronounced this last part with a maniacal glee. The phenomenon seems to be able to wipe objects from our memories, but it's not a perfect deletion. The physical signs of the object used to exist are still there. So when I pull back a piece of string that no longer has a fork in it, that means the fork must have been there and it has disappeared. From there, it was simple. All I had to do was tie all my forks with pieces of string and lay them out in a grid network and record the location of each piece of string that doesn't have a fork in it. She carefully placed the string next to a big row of other pieces of looping string. Then she pointed at the writing on the wall that said, I own 27 forks. This message says I own 27 forks, but I have 13 forkless pieces of strings. That means that at least 13 forks have disappeared since this experiment began. The question then, of course, is, why has the message changed to fit the new forks reality, yet the strings are left behind? Does this anomaly have some kind of limited ability to warp language specifically? It almost seems to suggest some kind of active sentience behind it. It notices some things and changes them, but misses other things, like it's been carelessly censored. She whipped out her pencil and began recording a pattern of dots on her grid. You noticed a place in the top left grid labeled Incident Zone.
So, where are all the disappearances coming from? Is that what your grid shows?
That's why I was so glad to speak to you. She tapped the Incident Zone label. It's your house, and it seems to be moving outward. You heard a scrambling sound. It was coming from inside you like claws scratching at the creases of your brain, trying to get in. You were having difficulty speaking, but you slowly walked forward and kept asking questions. What do you want to see? Experiment number 3, please. You noticed it a small... I might drink a little bit of tea to reset it. Delicious. You noticed a small closet in the back of the cottage with a sign on the door that said Experiment Site 3.
What's that one?
She looked confused. You opened the closet and peered in carefully. Inside, there was a tiny set of gentlemen's clothes, carefully folded on a stool, small enough for a rat to wear. A tiny top hat was placed on top of the pile, with a pair of miniature dress shoes next to it.
What is this?
The longer you stared at the tiny bundle of clothes, the more a sense of powerful implicit wrongness crawled under your skin. Something about them didn't fit. They didn't belong here. I don't remember this. The closet was suffocating. There was barely room to breathe. You felt the urge to get out in the fresh air. You forced yourself to move closer to the clothes. You picked up one of the tiny dress shoes. The bottom was encrusted with mud.
It must be the clothes from an old childhood toy you used to have. It's probably nothing.
Of course, yes, of course, that must be it. I remember now. Nothing at all, just an old toy. Dark spots swam at the corners of your vision. You dropped the shoe and staggered out of the closet. You felt a deep pressure settle on you, like being at the bottom of the sea, compressing your body from all angles. Your intestines knotted and twisted in coiled spirals. It was done. The witch noticed nothing. We need to warn people, your family especially. You felt a strange pressure in your throat. This all seems so familiar. I'm sure you've seen it before. I knew its name, but we need to act fast. Now we know this lacuna is coming from your house. We can... Your tongue was fat and poisonous in your mouth. It twisted and spoke. This is an exciting theory, isn't it? It makes you the hero, a visionary. You saw what no one else could. Now only you can stop it. Thrilling. But I think you're overlooking a much simpler explanation. What do you mean? Memory loss, confusion, difficulty performing familiar tasks, withdrawing from your friends and family, losing the ability to think clearly. What do these symptoms suggest to you?
No, that's not possible.
Her voice was unsteady. I know I have struggled in the past, but it's not just me. We proved it. It can't just be in my head. What about the strings? What strings? She turned around. There were no strings on the windowsill. The floor of the cottage was clear. There were no flags. There never were. I can't. What about the forks? You're confused, dear. You don't own any forks, don't you remember? You never have. The witch looked out the window and saw that you were right. The ground was bare, the cottage was empty, there were no forks in sight. Your throat pulsed and pushed the words out of your teeth. You eat with your hands, your bare hands, like an animal. Your claws, your teeth, you always have. You told me so. No, I wouldn't do that. They have to be here. The witch began to ransack the house, pulling out drawers and shelves, but there was nothing inside. On the wall was a smeared message in bright red paint. It said, I own nothing. I'm worried about you, dear. We all are. Staying all alone in this tiny, tiny cottage, all by yourself. It's barely enough room to fit. The wall is pressed in on you. You didn't even have space to stand fully upright. We've known each other for so long. We have? You felt your throat muscles burn as they constricted in your throat. Your voice came out sounding soft and comforting. Of course, so many years now. We wouldn't lie to you. We only want you to be safe. You have to trust me. You're not well. These things you're seeing, they aren't there. The witch spoke in a very small voice. Oh, okay. This really is the best thing, dear. For your health. She looked down at her hands. They were shaking. Tears welled up in her eyes, and you looked away courteously.
I was doing so well. I thought I was better. I really thought. There was a long silence. Well, it doesn't matter now. I'll pack my things. I know you only want me to be safe.
I'm so glad. Don't worry. Everything is going to be fine. I'll get the others, and we'll come back for you and your things. We can set you up in the village, somewhere safe, where you aren't a danger to yourself. Your muscles clenched and pulled you upright. The witch's face was scrunched up, and she was rubbing her eyes.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
There's no need to be sorry. I forgive you.
She looked at you. Her eyes were large and terrified. You'll come back for me, right?
Yes, of course. I'll be right back.
I'm sorry.
Your muscles constricted and your legs jerked. Your arms pulled you through the miniature doorway and out of the witch's house. You saw the witch once in the doorway, looking scared and alone in the crushingly small space of her tiny, tiny cottage. Then the door closed, and your body turned around. You felt the tension leave you, like surfacing from the bottom of the ocean. You bent over and hacked some twisted, bloody thing out of you and onto the grass. It looked like a matted clump of dark fur. You glanced at it once, then looked away, and forgot it forever. The night was cool and quiet. There was a lovely breeze blowing. You were in the middle of a large, empty field, and the stars twinkled above you. The grass crunched under your feet. Nothing beside remained. Why did you come out here? You couldn't recall. There's no one living out this way. Never has been. You shook your head and laughed at your own foolishness. You must have gotten lost again. You've been so forgetful lately. But no matter. It was a beautiful night. Perfect for a walk. You stretched your legs and began the long walk back to the village and home. Far away, a small piece of string with a loop in it fell into the river and was gone. There is nothing else to say. The tale is told. If you like it, praise it. If not, let it be forgotten. That one's extra set. So I actually, IRL, I deal with memory problems. I have forgotten very important things. A lot of my life is missing, and I understand what the witch was going through there. Having somebody say, oh, remember like last birthday when we did this? And not remembering any of what happened. It's crushing to see somebody's eyes look at you, and you understand that you've forgotten something very important to them, that it's hurting them. And you feel unsafe to yourself. You do, because you don't know what you're forgetting. You don't know if there's something really huge about to happen that you need to solve, but you just don't know. And now that I have nobody, I worry sometimes that the memory loss will take over me and, I don't know, I'll just wither away in my bed or something. So when the witch screamed out, asking if you would return, that hit home. Goodbye, witch. Only one story left to be told. The story of death, the mushroom. Listen closely. I won't repeat myself again. Back in the old days, when there was still a chance, your mother lived in a vast empty forest. To the north, there was nothing and no one. To the west, there was nothing and no one. To the east, there was nothing and no one. To the south, a wise mushroom. One day, your mother gave birth to you as her first and only child. She had no idea what to do. She took you up in her arms and ran to the darkness of the forest, promising that she would ask the first man she met to be your godfather. Stop reading. In the darkness of the forest, she may or may not have met a man in white. Is anything certain these days? His right hand held a dove, his other held a gun, his other a crisp dollar bill, and his other a pillar of fire. His suit was perfect. His face was too bright to look upon. He already knew what was on her mind. Poor woman, let me be the godfather. I shall hold this child and make sure he's happy on this earth for the rest of his days. I will ask only one thing. He must work hard and earn every dollar and obey me above all else.
Who are you?
I am your dear lord. I will ask only one thing. He must work hard, earn every dollar, and obey me.
No. Then I don't want you as the godfather. You give to the rich and take from the poor. You are no lord of mine.
She said this foolish thing, with no understanding of how wisely the Lord distributes wealth and poverty. Then she turned away from him and ran into the forest. In the deeper darkness of the forest, she may or may not have met a man all in red. How can we be sure of anything but the greatness of God? All the jewels of the earth fell from his right hand, and all the pleasures of the world fell from his left, and his other held the wonders of the universe, his other a fat cigar, his other a long knife black as coal dust, his other held the most intoxicating spices, such that the King of Kings would cry to taste them, and his other hand held a single dead rose, and his other was in his pocket and out of view. Poor woman, let me be the godfather. I'll make sure the child needs nothing and wants everything. He shall live in wealth and comfort for all his days and devour only the richest meats for every meal. I have only one condition. He must promise to obey no master and scorn the rule of law and do as he wilt every day of his life.
Who are you?
Why, I am the devil himself.
No.
Then I don't want you as the godfather. You lie and cheat and lead good people astray. She turned from him and raced deeper into the forest, the deepest darkness of the forest, where she may or may not have met a handsome woman, all in black. What can any of us know for certain, except that the mercies of the Almighty are vaster than that of the deepest ocean and more numerous than all the pebbles on the land? Her limbs were broken. She had no hands. Poor woman, let me be the godmother. The child will have nothing. He will need nothing. He need make no promises. I have no demands.
Who are you?
I don't know you. Everyone knows me. She tilted her head so that the moonlight fell upon it, and your mother saw that it was true. The woman was Lady Death herself. Yes, you're the right one. You take the rich and poor without distinction. You did not have a choice. In one swoop, she bowed down and placed her mark upon you. You will name him God. The moment he turns 18, he will be mine. Keep him safe from me until I come for him. I will send 3 messengers before me to announce my arrival. But she was talking to herself. She looked around, holding the child. There was no one there, and there never was. I am Death's godchild. And so you grew up alone in an old cottage on stilts in the forest. There was many miraculous things in the house. The table was set, the larder was fully stocked, and you had plenty of food to survive on. Where did it come from? You couldn't recall. The closets were filled with clothes of all sizes. In the bedroom was a hand-sewn patchwork quilt that fit just right. How did these things come to pass? You didn't trouble yourself with such thoughts. Whenever you encountered these miracles, you simply said, "The house provides." You woke every morning to silence. I want to know about my neighbors. Yours was a vast and silent land. At times you could walk for days without seeing another soul. You dared not venture out often. Whenever you did, you felt the pressure of that gigantic emptiness lurking just out of sight, like a bottomless ocean, and fled quickly back to the safety of your home. To the north, there was nothing and no one. To the east, there was nothing and no one. To the west, there was nothing and no one. In fact, the South River and the forest around, but it was watched over by a wise mushroom ambassador who had owned these lands since before anyone could remember. On cold, clear nights, you could see her walking through the depths of the forest with her white veil and delicate waves of silver splorers drifting behind her. She allowed your family to live on the river and use her lands under one condition. Ask not what concerns you not, lest you hear what pleases you not. Your family accepts her wishes, and so you let each other be. She was often away, brokering trade agreements and peace treaties and delicate alliances between the many trees and plants and old warring ferns of the forest. Or so it was said. The lands around your house were so strange. There's only my house and the Daintree village. You lived a contented life. No one bothered you. The stoop was full of fresh-cut logs for the fireplace. The house had many beds so that you never lacked for a place to sleep. The house provides. You kept yourself busy and distracted as much as you could, but every day there came that terrible time when you finally had to lie down alone in bed. As you lay awake in the bed at night, you felt the silence. It lurked behind everything, like a shadow on the wall of something that you dared not turn around to see. You found yourself leaving the taps going, the fire roaring, keeping the pots and pans rattling just to shut it out, just so you couldn't hear what lay beyond the sound. Soon, you could stand no longer. You knew there would be a festival in town tonight, although you could not have said how you knew this. You searched the pantry and found a package wrapped up in a coin purse along with some bread and meat. The house provides. And so you took up your belongings and strode on down the road to the festival. The twilight set in. The wet, cool mist of the rainforest settled around you. You could see no animals stirring. No bird song disturbed the peace. As you walked down the road, you saw the wise mushroom moving through the deep darkness of the trees, her pale spores flowing in a fog behind her. In her left hand, she held a small lantern, and in her right hand, she held a crooked knife stained green. I will follow her. You left the path and followed her from a distance. She walked into the towering buttress roots of an ancient strangler fig, cut the vines and swamp flowers from it to reveal a small blue door, inlaid with precious moonstone and intricate engravings. Gorge, guzzle, gulp, and grab, never shall this wound scab. You quickly snuck inside before the door closed behind you. Inside you were shocked to find the tree completely hollow. A boundless cavern was formed inside of it, cold as ice despite the heat outside. The floor of the cavern was piled with rubies and pearls and glinting onyx and solid gold pieces larger than your fist. All across the room you saw lush silks and pillars of precious metals of every type and all manner of riches that would turn the King of Kings green with envy. The glimmering magenta incense smoke rolled across the room and coated it in a dark haze, smelling of the most incredible spices and herbs and enchanting odors. There was no sign of the mushroom anywhere. In the stillness, you heard muffled noises coming from a small, black door deep in the recesses of the cavern, and the distant echo of some soft sound. It almost sounded like scratching in the walls of the chamber. All at once you remembered the festival and your godparent and the promise you made to your mother. This was no time to be dallying about exploring caverns. You had to find a way to escape before your fate, before midnight. Run along now, child. You left the cavern at once and continued on towards the festival. In the depths of the woods, you heard nothing. You saw no one. You were alone. You continued on down the empty road, and so you finally arrived at the village. The rich, dark blanket of night was softly rolling over the town, and cooking fires lit up across the hills one by one. The village was empty. The decorations were all set, the great bonfires, the chairs, stacked tables, laden with plates, streamers lay over the road, but the chairs were all vacant. Piles of food lay undisturbed on the tables. Not even flies ventured near. The sound of the crackling bonfire echoed through the deserted streets. You stood in the middle of the village while investigating the banquet. You walked down to the river. Picnic blankets lay empty before the dark waters. For a moment, you thought you saw people around the fire, but they were just shadows. The food lay uneaten. The mayor sat on the shore, looking out over the water. You looked out over the sad sea. I talked to the mayor. If you're going out, chum, be wary. They say Moonhead walks these roads at night. They say his face is a full moon, the back of his face is a new moon. If he looks at you with his bright face, you can only tell the truth. With the dark face, only lies. His robes are rich blue silk, with clouds of fog rippling across them. They flow around him, hypnotizing waves as he dances. So they tell me. He leaps through the trees, calling for his disciples, the lost and insane, and they all spring together through the woods with glee, singing moon-mad songs. It's quite the sight. He winked at my mother once, and I never saw her again. Sometimes I still hear her laughter on moonless nights. You walk to the edge of town. It's waiting. Fruit bats chirped and swirled overhead. Talk to the gloommonger. God, is it? Lovely name. Did you choose it yourself? You know, a secret lies in that place where names are chosen. Perhaps you could go there now and choose another name. Perhaps you will find something if you choose the right name. Perhaps the name of an ancient king. Who can say? It won't save us, of course. Nothing will. We're already dead. Okay, so apparently my king was the wrong name. What ancient king am I supposed to find? Alright, let's brainstorm. Let's brainstorm this for a second, alright? So, it's an ancient king. A great king. King Arthur? Well, who... What's a Red Riding Hood? Who's Slate? Right, because Red Riding Hood is the one with the wolf. Oh, I want to watch that movie again. That was a weird movie, one where like the grandma had like skis and stuff. That was cool. Fruit bats chirped and swirled overhead. I'll return to the village. You turned and walked back. Go to the edge of town. It's waiting. Yeah, that's all I got. Okay, cool. Talk to the gutterlings. Hello, mate. Here's a tip. If you talk to people multiple times, they might have more to say. It's true. Try it on us. That's the spirit. Make a sound like gutting 6 times. Finally, boop, boop, boop. Let's go out into the woods. You turned and walked out into the darkness of the woods. No one stopped you. The grass rustled. Oh. The thief, the toad, the witch, the mushroom, and me. The grass rustled. The trees pressed close around you. I'd like to discover a rustling wreck. You walked through the darkness of the woods until you discovered an abandoned old train. The train was wedged between 2 trees. Grass grew over the wheels. There were no train tracks, no sign of how it came to lie here. The iron slowly rusted in the soft rain. Enter the train. You hoisted yourself up into the train carriage. The main room was some kind of bar or gambling hall that now lay silent. The moonlight gleamed on empty bottles and glasses. The wind whistled through open windows. Some of the tables still had rotten remains of strange fruits. No flies or animals would touch them. I'm going to investigate the engine room. This room, something, something, something. Case study: the thief, the toad, and the mushroom. Reinar Groden. The next version of the story was changed to include a thief character, a thoughtless young person whose wild and uninhibited nature brings to ruin everyone around. Person, 1893. This version of the story gained infamy after the disastrous production of the Reinar Groden, The Robber and the Frog, a Swedish film adaptation from 1924. The wolf fragment mentioned previously is kept in this adaptation and enlarged to become more central, which the director stated was intended to honor the first monster, Burke, 1923. This angle became central to the film's marketing, with the director even claiming that the book had been infected by a fragment of an ancient spirit, which can only be exorcised by those that know its true name, Burke, 1923. This ended when the lead actress of the film disappeared, leading into the collapse of the project. Earth, 1926. No footage from the film was ever released, but surviving promotional art represents the wolf with a spiral face, a single, coiling line. Now the gaping maw of the furnace lay cold. Okay, yeah, the same thing. I'll head up to the other carriages first. You walk through the empty compartments, slowly rotting mattresses on the beds, empty suitcases with no luggage, a ragged, midnight blue cloak. Ooh, Sunday, January 21st, 1827. Dear Jenny, I am sorry that I stole your book, and for all the horrible things I said. I did not mean a whit of them. You know that my hands are no longer small enough to reach into the mill as they are need to. Mr. A says that I shall soon be no use to him, and I refuse to marry and retire as you plan to. But I have found a plan. The wolf has spoken to me. You will not see me again. Here is your book back. You may recognize someone among its pages, or who knows, perhaps the person you read of there shall be no different than that will not, and you will not recognize them at all. Do not grieve me, my love. You know that I have never been myself here. I take this bargain to find a better self. When you read this book, I hope you will remember all that happened. The snowstorm of the 15th, and what came to pass, and what was said about your hearing in the glass I will never forget. I wish you and your new husband all the happiness in the world. Forever yours, C. Postscript. If you do wish to follow me, it will wait for you under the house. It will always be under the house. Dear Jenny, 1827, retrieved June 10th, 1974, from diary entry inside the... Can I read the back one? Oh. This game does that a lot, where it like hides more text. I'm like, I want to see that. Right, to the roof of the train. You pulled yourself up through the window and onto the roof. There was nothing on the roof, but you sat and looked out at the countryside. You could barely see the dark lake nearby. Tiny pinpricks of stars shed faint light on the immense blackness. After a long moment, you pulled yourself back into the train. You're gonna leave the train. You left back out on the soft grass. The train was wedged between two trees. No sign of where it came from. You're gonna leave the train. You turned away and walked back through the woods. The wind whistled through the empty wreck behind you. The grass rustled. The trees pressed close around you. I will wander aimlessly. For some reason, you wandered off into the dark woods, picking paths at random. Famous actress vanishes. Stockholm, August 24th. Actress Camille Blanc, famous for her roles in The Last Temptation and Wrath, has been missing for the past week. She was last seen at the set of her latest production, Rannaren och Grodan, an experimental Swedish film adapted from a local... Oh, it's Swedish. Rannaren och Grodan, an experimental Swedish film adapted from a local fairy tale. The film gained controversy after several cast members banned the project under mysterious circumstances, and leading... something the picture Rupert Anderson made headlines by claiming he was haunted by the wolf from the tale, who offered a deal to live in the story, be immortal, dance forever. Director Eric Burke has cancelled the production until further notice and refused requests for comment. He is assisting the police with all their inquiries. What are you doing? I'm searching for someone I once knew. A foolish endeavor. There is no such person. There never was. You wandered in circles for a long time. Finally, you found yourself back where you began. I'll wander aimlessly. What are you doing? Searching for the place between the trees. A foolish dream. There is no such place. There never was. You wandered in circles for a long time. Finally, you found yourself back where you began. Wander aimlessly. Searching for nothing in particular. Very well. Curiosity is a fine vice for the hero of a tale like this. But everything has a limit. You should return to the village. The story is waiting for you. You wandered in circles for a long time. Finally, you find yourself back where you began. I will search for the mushroom. The hairs at the back of your neck prickled. You had a sense of finality, like a wolf's jaws closing around you. I'll continue on. You walked through the woods. Soon you came upon an ancient strangler fig. You cut the vines and swamp flowers from it to reveal a small blue door, inlaid with precious moonstone and intricate engravings. If you sought out Gilgamesh, son of the goddess Ninsun, fifth king of Uruk after the flood, famous as a great builder and as judge for the dead, turn to page 695. Cuneiform may be Sumerian. As you approach, you see Gilgamesh before you. This was the man to whom all things were known. This was the king who knew the countries of the world. He was wise. He saw the abyss and knew secret things. He brought us a tale of the days before the flood. Now witness, behold, he stands sweeping at the foot of a great stone that seems to scrape the heavens. Oh, weeping. What's going on with this stone? This is a monument to my beloved Enkidu. Ask him about Enkidu. He was a wild man. His body was rough. He had long hair like a woman's. It weaved like the hair of Nisaba, the goddess of corn. When we met, we grappled. We shattered the doorsteps and the walls shook. We snorted like bulls locked together. Then immediately my fury died. Enkidu looked at me and said, "There is not another like you in the world." So we embraced each other and our friendship was sealed. I was a god and a man, and Enkidu was an animal and a man. Together we became human. What happened next? I have not stamped on bricks as many destiny decreed. In the cedar forest was a guardian named Humbaba, a terror to the human race. So I said with pride, I, Gilgamesh, go to see the creature of whom such things are spoken, the rumor of whose name fills the world. I will conquer him in his cedar wood, and show the strength of the sons of Uruk. All the world shall know of it. Enkidu said to me, Gilgamesh, your courage carries you too far. Humbaba is not like men who die. House among the cedars. When he looks at someone, it is the look of death, a lion eating a corpse. He never wipes away the blood. When I heard... What's his name? Humbaba. Humbaba. Humbaba is the name of the wolf. When I heard this, I laughed. I shall say that I am afraid of Humbaba, that I will sit at home for all the rest of my days. I will cut down the tree. I will kill Humbaba. I will stamp my fame on men's minds forever. Can you tell me about Humbaba? After many days and nights, we came upon him in the depths of the forest. His face was a spiral, from which omens may be read. Around him were arranged 7 terrors, arths, which lay upon him like 7 cloaks. Enkidu quailed in fear, but I said, Look, Enkidu, immolation and sacrifice are not yet for us. Put your hand in mine, and we shall see what hands like ours can do. I struck Humbaba with a thrust of the sword in the neck. Enkidu struck with the second blow, and the third blow we struck together, and Humbaba fell. I held his head aloft. Now the mountains were moved, and all the hills, for the guardian of the forest was killed. The 7 splendors of Humbaba were extinguished. How did Enkidu die? The gods cursed us for our hubris. Enkidu lay on his bed. His tears ran down in streams, and the sickness grew stronger. He called out to me. It was I who cut down the cedar, I who leveled the forest, I who slew Humbaba, and now see what has become of me. Listen, my friend, he said to me, this is the dream I dreamed last night. The somber-faced man-bird, he had directed on me his purpose. His face was a vampire face, his foot was a lion's foot, his hand was an eagle's talon. He fell on me, and his claws were in my hair. He held me fast, and I smothered. Then he transformed me. He turned his stare towards me, and he led me away to the place of the Urkala, the queen of darkness, to the house from which none who enters ever returns, down the road from which there is no coming back. With the first light of dawn, I touched his heart, but it did not beat, nor did he lift his eyes again. For 6 days I would not let him be buried, thinking, if my grief is violent enough, perhaps he will come back to life again. How can my mind have any rest? My beloved friend has turned into clay. My beloved Enkidu has turned into clay. And I too will lie down in the dirt, like him, and never rise again. Who are you? I am Gilgamesh. 2/3 they made me god, and 1/3 man. In Uruk I built walls, a great rampart, and the temple of blessed Eanna, for the god of the firmament Anna, and for Ishtar, the goddess of love. Look at the walls today. Go see them. Walk along them, I say. See how the ramparts gleam like copper in the sun. No king has built their like again. The walls of Uruk fell long ago. Lacuna in the text. I see. Then this tale is all that remains. All that is left of me is this last fragment lurking in this tale. A haunting spirit, a memory of a fragment survived. Soon I will be forgotten, just as all men are forgotten. What should I do? Attend. The battle is not over. Of whom Babas still lurk in this tale, just as I do. Feast on. We are eaten forever. You must travel to an unknown road to fight a strange battle. Confront him in your house where he lurks. He will be cunning, but you will be brave. From the day you go until you return, until you destroy the evil witch Shambashandra will pray for you. If your heart is fearful, throw away fear. If there is terror in it, throw away terror. Take your axe in your hand and attack. He who leaves the fight unfinished is not at peace. Come with me. No, where you go, I cannot follow. I will take you back. The rest is your story to tell. Goodbye. Goodbye, small one. I am sorry about Enkidu. Enkidu. The river rises, flows over its banks, and carries us all away, like mayflies floating downstream. They stare at the sun, then all at once, there is nothing. You've returned. You don't understand. Where did it all go? Who were you talking to? I called, and you did not answer. I could not see you. No matter. You are back in my arms now, child. I will not release you again. You don't want to go that way. Don't listen. I'm telling you, you don't want to go back there. Or all of your friends are here. Adventure waits. Why not stay? There's nothing back there you want. Trust me. Whatever you think you're going to find down that road, you are wrong. There is nothing for you at home anymore. This is the last time I will tell you. Go back to the fire where it is safe. Fine. You walk through the village gates and into there. The woods grew dark. The silent forest passed you by. You heard sirens in the distance. The trees slowly thinned. You walked out of the woods and down a bitumen path. You wandered down an empty street. A cold wind was blowing. The cold started to sink into your bones. The only light was from an empty Hungry Jack's on the side of the road. The sign shone into the night. An apartment block was nearby. You waited for a gap in the traffic, then crossed the road. You walked up to the unit. You knew which one it was. I'll try the door. You jiggled the handle. The door was locked. This is the point of no return. But you already knew the combination. The lock came undone with a click. A warm light flickered in the window. Make sure you're ready before you open the door. Open the door. Child, the hour grows late. This choice leads to the end. You will never be able to return to the world you once knew. There is not much time left, but still, you should only open this door once you are certain you know the truth. I'm not certain. I need to talk to the mushroom. Wander into the woods. Look for the mushroom. You had a sense of finality, like the wolf's jaws closing around you. You walk through the woods. You come across the ancient fig. The words. Gorge, guzzle, gulp, and grab. Never shall this wound scab. With this the door opened before you, and you vanished inside immediately. Inside was boundless cavern, cold as ice despite the heat outside. The floor was piled high with gems. All across the room, silks and pillars that would turn the King of Kings green with envy. A magenta incense rolled through, coating everything in a dark haze. Spices, herbs, odors. Come, it's time. The mushroom startled you. She was holding a picnic basket. Her eyes were red. Time for what? I think you know, darling. I think you can see where this is going by now. Carry those things for me, please, will you? You looked down, saved bottles of red wine placed by the door. 2 wine glasses were next to them, a small, neat pile of napkins. Everything had been prepared long ago. You picked up the supplies, the mushroom linked her arms with yours, and in a blink you were traveling down through the rocks and the pillars of the earth, down into the last kingdom. Flickering silver light lit up the scene.
All around you press blooming mass of web caps, milk caps, scarlet elf caps, poison pies, deceivers, pink gills, brittle gills, veiled ladies, lawyers, wigs, stink corns, earth stars, beefsteaks, chicken of the woods, earth balls, sculpted puff balls, yellow foots, lung warts, brown-eyed wolves, golden-eyed umbrellas, Satan's bow lays, false chanterelles, death caps, destroying angels, and all the members of the mysterious dark taxa, the dark matter fungi that lie unknown to mankind. They all swept to and fro through this twisted city of endless tunnels. The shape of a giant, pale, and broken mountain loomed over the city, barely visible through the thick fog of spores. Don't worry, dear. I've picked out a spot. I've had it picked out for a long time. She took you through the throng of mushrooms and out onto a lonely hilltop overlooking the kingdom. A picnic rug was already laid on the moss. You could see the plants of the underworld rustling darkly in the thick woods at the bottom of the hill, leading to the pale mountain beyond. Here we are. She set tea candles sparkling at each corner of the rug and laid out a rich feast before you. You took out the wine glasses and she uncorked the wine and poured a toast. To us. She looked away and discreetly wiped her eyes. You look out into the night. What's going on in your head? Do you think I did the right thing? You don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry, I'm being quite self-indulgent, aren't I? Well, you'll have to deal with it. This is my time, and I'm going to be as self-indulgent as I damn well please. She lathered some cream on fresh baked scone and took a delicate bite. It all seemed like the right choice at the time, but now it just feels like cowardice. All those years I spent in here, so many things I could have done in those years. No use worrying about it now, of course. No point. The great pale mountain in the distance shifted in uneasy slumber. You looked out into the night. We'll relax and join in silence. The misty night air settled around the blanket, flickering fireflies were visible in the distance. A haze of chirping from underground crickets washed over the sea. A deep breath slowly came out of you. You let the weight in your shoulders slip away, piece by piece. The mushroom's pale spores began to lift out of her cap and away down the hill in the breeze. Thank you for spending this time with me, darling. You could have gone anywhere, couldn't you? Stayed with anyone. I would ask you not to forget me, but I know that won't be possible. There was a distant sound from the darkness of the kingdom, almost like howling. You looked out into the night. What should I do next? Well, the next thing to do is move on to this lovely lemon delicious I packed for us. And pour me another glass, please. You know something's wrong here, but I don't. Shh, dear. All we can do now is sit back and finish off the rest of this food. That's it. What happens after that, you'll have to figure out for yourself, just as we did. The plants down at the bottom of the hill shook as if disturbed by the passage of the colossal beast. You look out into the night. What's this all about? I know you must be terribly worried. I'm sorry, dear. I just wanted to sit, look out at the stars, and enjoy some nice wine and company. I've thought about this moment so many times. This is how I wanted it to be at the end. She cut off a small sliver of aged truffle cheese and spread it on a water cracker, then looked at it doubtfully. Oh, to hell with it. No harm in it now. She added an extra slice of cheese, a chili, a garlic olive, a piece of salami, and a chunk of marinated artichoke hard onto the cracker, then gently eased the whole concoction to her mouth. Were there always this many stars in the sky? You found you couldn't recall. You looked out into the night. Run! Let's get out of here. We need to find somewhere safe. No, darling. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but there's no point. She held the scones towards you with a stern glance until you took one. There never was an ending other than this. There never was a time other than this. No other place but this one. This is the true ending, at least for me. I made my decision a long time ago, and soon I'm sure you'll need to make yours. The mushroom fell back onto the picnic rug and spun out her arms.
You lay down to join her and looked up at the sky above, a great, long sigh. Slowly eased out of her. Have you ever looked back at your life and tried to recalculate the sheer volume of it that you've wasted? The just ungodly amount of time that you let slip away? Of course, I don't mean the time spent having picnics or afternoon naps or watching the sky. That time isn't wasted. I mean the time spent doing the things you don't want to do for people you don't care about. Those long decades spent paying rent, attending meetings, hunched over desks, traveling to work and back, doing all those petty, grinding little tasks every day. It's horrifying how incalculable a waste. There was a sound of scratching that seemed to come from somewhere inside you. How many minutes and hours and days and years have vanished into that black yawning pit? It's impossible to even fit the number into my head. It's nightmarish. The stars in the sky, the grains of sand on the beach, I can't even begin to take it all in. But every time you think about it, every time that number starts to creep into your mind, you think, there's still time, don't you? The wine in your glasses rippled into complicated twisting patterns like the entrails of beasts from which omens might be read. There's still time to chase that dream. There are still years left to me. I'll make it someday. I can turn this around. It'll all work out in the end. I'll start tomorrow. But there are no tomorrows left. The earth shook beneath you. You almost thought you heard the impact of great footfalls almost upon you now. I can't say that anymore. It's done. The hours spent are all the hours I'll ever have. And all throughout my life, the moments where I did something I really enjoyed were like small gaps of air between years of drowning. The night was getting darker and darker. I had to plan them and save up for them and spend every day just to try to hold out for the next one. Those tiny, tiny moments where I got to be alive. Something was very close to you now. You didn't dare look. There was a smell like something rotting, a sound like something coiling in the cracks. All I have left now is that number, that percentage of waste. It'll never get any smaller. It's done. It's all done. Tears ran down her cheeks. She made no effort to hide them anymore. Hold me, please. You tentatively put your arm around her, and she nestled into your shoulder and wept. You held her tight as she stared out into the night sky. It was pitch black. No stars or moon brightened that abyss. You reached for the wine bottle and realized there was none. There were no wine glasses. There was no food. You felt the touch of moss under you. There was no blanket. You looked down. You were holding nothing at all. Your arms embracing thin air. Why were you here? You must have needed a rest, a night outdoors. All of us need some time to ourselves every now and then, don't we? No harm in that. You stood up, brushed away the moss, breathed in the cool night air. You felt warm, full, and sad, for no reason you could name. Finally, you began the long walk home in silence, the dark night sky looming over you. There's nothing else left to tell. That's the end. Run away with it now, as fast as you can. Goodbye, mushroom. Now, it is just the tale of the wolf. What was his name? Hanbaba? Hulbaba? Oh, I forgot the name. The wolf. Silence. It oozed out of the gaps in the rotten floorboards, and the cracks in the windows, and down through the small holes in the roof. It had been lying in the wait there for all those long years, and it could wait no longer. It had nothing to hide now, for it had already won. You sat alone in your silent, corroding house, in an empty forest that had no name.
Every day, you barred the windows, stopped up the cracks with plaster, and kept your door locked and barred against the vacuum of the corpse world outside. But still it came, seeping in through the crevices of your home in a slow, crushing flood, pressing in with such force you could barely breathe. The worst was when you tried to sleep. Each night you lay rigid in your bed, listening to the sounds of fire slowly die until there was nothing left to protect you. And you could do nothing but lie in the endless, suffocating abyss of silence, unable to even hear your own breathing, until at last you fell asleep and dreamed of silence. The silence was in everything. It penetrated your meat and your bones and soaked deep into your brain. There were deep, empty, silent chasms in your thoughts, things you were no longer able to think. You had lived in this house for as long as you could remember, which was 3 days. There were many beds for you to sleep on. The pantry was fully stocked with food for you to eat. In the closets you found outfits to wear, all shapes and sizes. The shelf held 13 small pairs of shoes and 1 adult pair. Where did it all come from? Who made the food? Who built the beds? These questions no longer had meaning for you. Whenever you were troubled by such things, you simply shrugged and said, "The house provides." Was there ever anything outside this room and this house? None can say. Did you ever have a name? None can say. You ate from the pantry of the house and slept on the beds of the house and wore the clothes of the house. That is all. The house provides. Like all other things, your house slowly fell day by day into greater and greater ruin as the vast unstoppable silence of the universe ground it into dirt, piece by piece. Soon the lacuna would be total and all encompassing. Nothing would be left. Not that you worried about that. You didn't worry about anything anymore. That was all done now. The soft blur of silence slowly spreading through your brain. Choose to watch the fire, explore the attic, bedrooms, the study, the basement. The basement, that is where it will be. I'll watch the fire. You watched the soft glow of the dying coals. A memory came to you. Remembered how anxious you used to be. So much grief and fear and pain over this dying earth of yours. And now, it was gone. There was nothing to fear anymore. The worst had already come to pass. Relief washed over you. The weight of the world lifted from your shoulders. You were at peace. Too late to do anything about it now. Too late for anything. There was rest in the land. Explore the attic. One day you went up to the attic. In the darkness there you found a midnight cloak and a black mask. The pockets held small, precious gems and soft, mossy stones. These things belonged to no one. The house provides. That night you slept in warmth, wrapped in the midnight cloak. Next I'll explore the bedrooms. One day you decided to search the bedrooms. Underneath one of the beds you found a tiny suit, top hat, and cane. In the pockets you discovered silver coins and a small decanter of pond scum. These things belonged to no one. The house provides. You had no use for the coins, but you sipped on the pond scum when you became thirsty. One day, you decided to search the study. In the drawers of the desk, you found a black hat with a wide brim and a pointed crown. Underneath the hat were bundles of lavender and herbs and parcels of fine tea. These things belonged to no one. The house provides. You planted the herbs in pots around the house, where they slowly wilted. The soft blur of silence slowly spreading through your brain. You had never dared to explore the lands outside the house. One day, you decided to try. You gathered them up and reached for the door, but as you took hold of the handle, you stopped. You could feel it outside, the howling pressure of the vacuum beyond, pressed against the door like a physical force. The weight of it paralyzed you.
You could not stand the thought of walking down the desolate path to that silent village where no one lived. You had a vision of those empty streets and yawning carcass houses just outside your door, the fields that no one tilled, the cavernous schools with no children, the carefully manicured dead lawns and dry riverbeds, and petrified forests stretching on for endless empty acres under the blank sky which held no stars. You fell away from the door, shaking. Better to sit in front of your fire, to keep the silence at bay for a while longer. Well, rest and wait. You rested in that house for an uncountable era of time. Time, of course, meant nothing now. Not anymore. All those petty, meaningless little things you needed to do had either been done already or could never be done. Either way, it was finished. The work was done. I sat and rested there with you. My work, too, was done. There was rest in the land. The fire was warm. Nothing left but to lie by the fire for a while and wait. The house provides. Yes, the house provides. Who are you? It doesn't matter. My name was important a long, long time ago, but you wouldn't recognize it now. I came from an old story. The gods assigned me as a terror to the human race. I was possessed of 7 horrors, or in your tongue you might say auras, or glamours of terrible splendor, which lay upon me like 7 cloaks. My face was a single coiling line like the entrails of men and beasts, from which omens can be read. I never knew a mother or father. I was born of the mountain. I guarded the forests. My breath was fire. My gaze was death. Who would dare stand against me? Long time ago now. Barely remember those days. No one does. Fragments of me survived. I clung to life in old stories like this one. The beasts in the forest, the wolf at the door. You know.
What happened to my friends?
I'm sorry, child. You had the misfortune of coming in at the end of things. Each of them read my book and struck a bargain with me to live here in the story, in the life of their dreams. Do not think I was unkind. I kept my deal. Each of them lived here for almost 100 years or more. But nothing lasts forever. Sooner or later, their debt had to be paid. The deal came due. They are forgotten now, as both of us soon will be. This is the curse you've been born with, to witness the end. It had to happen to someone. Are you going to eat me? Yes, child. Everyone is eaten by something. The only choice that any human being ever has is to decide what it will be. But not yet. We can rest here a little while longer. See, I don't want to say this because I like Death personally. Death is a nice guy. No, child, there was no trick. Here, in my story, they got the life they always wanted to live. Wise, brave, cunning, and kind, the best versions of themselves, happy endings, great adventures, all of it. Real life, of course, was never so kind. The world they were born into was not a good place for them, as I suspect it is not a good place for you. I offered them another world. Of course, in time, they would disappear. Nothing lasts forever. They knew that when they took the deal. I am done resting now. Very well. I will make you my offer. Come, join me in this book. Help me rejuvenate this tired story. You will live in the village. I will lurk in the forests. I will be cunning, but you will be brave. You will rise against me. Our battle will be the stuff of legends. You will defeat me, and everyone will live happily ever after. It's everything you've dreamed of. Will I be alone? No, don't worry. We will find others. The story will be full of life again, soon. But You're evil. Yes, thank you. I spent my life honoring the old ways, preserving the old kind of evil. Beautiful and terrible, mystery and horror, ruthless, captivating. A dark fire. The type of evil you can't get in your world. The evil in your world is a gray, endless fog that soaks into every particle of your being like mold. You can't even see it. Like a fish can't see water, it surrounds you. Every day you wake up and breathe it in. It has been built into every fiber of the human machine. No one individual human can stop it. You can't even understand the scope of it. I offer you a better evil, something that can be defeated with a single act of human courage. Isn't that what you all want? Do I accept the bargain? Personally, I think I would accept. Thank you, my friend. You have done more for me than you can know. I hope that this can be a good home for you. You will be safe here for 100 years or more. You have made the right choice. Hold my hand in yours, and we will not fear what hands like ours can do. Now we must choose your title. Okay, the cobbler, trickster, crow, specter, winter rose, fool, water nixie, giant, bushranger, butcher, aristocrat, warrior poet, or hierophant. I will be the specter. Thank you, my child. That was the end. You finally turned to the last page and closed the book. A sense of peace and satisfaction filled you. It was the perfect ending. You sat there for many hours thinking over what you had read. Then you picked up the book and walked to the library. You placed it there on the return shelf, ready for another reader. As your hand left the pages, there was a shivering in the air, and you disappeared, never to be seen again in the world of men. There was a calmness. The silence slowly abated. The book sat on the shelf and waited. And then there was rest in the land. Oh, the game just crashed out. That was... Alright, that was a really good book. I've always said that I would greet death with open arms and a kiss on the cheek, which is why I said yes there in the end. Because the metaphor that I'm seeing is that the wolf was a form of death. That he came for everybody. Doesn't matter who, doesn't matter rich or poor. In the end, he comes for us all. And I think that's beautiful. I think there's a sort of unity in that. See, I was planning on just having like a fun little stream, read some stories, make some funny voices. I wasn't expecting that. I don't really know what to say. End of stream, I guess. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for listening. This will be posted up on YouTube in just a little bit. Maybe somebody will watch it. Yeah, thank you.